I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe I just need to hear from someone, anyone, that I'm not insane for feeling like this. My name is Floyd. Yeah, weird name, I know. My mom had a thing for old blues singers. I'm 38. I teach music theory at a community college in Iowa. And honestly, I thought my life was quiet in a good way. Predictable, safe. Until last Tuesday. That day started off like any other. Oatmeal for breakfast, cat throwing up under the couch, me trying to convince myself that my wife still loved me the way she used to. She'd been distant for a while. Nothing dramatic, just small, slow things like how she stopped asking me to sit with her while she dried her hair, or how she started locking her phone even though she used to hand it to me to read texts while she drove. I'd ask if everything was okay, and she'd smile that tired smile, rub my shoulder, and say I was overthinking again. And maybe I was. I tend to do that. I'm not the confrontational type. I grew up in a house where talking about your feelings was considered too much information, and now, I guess I carry that into adulthood, tiptoeing around everything, waiting for things to fix themselves. Anyway, that Tuesday she said she had a girl spa day planned with her old coworker, Bree. We're going to this new Himalayan salt sauna and then getting these crazy matcha facials. I'll be back by 6, she said. Sounds amazing, I said, and even offered to make dinner. She kissed me on the cheek like she was thanking a waiter, and off she went. I spent the day grading awful student essays about Mozart's influence on Taylor Swift, half watching an old documentary and trying to convince myself not to check her location on Find My. I didn't. Promise. I wanted to, but I didn't. But at 4:52 p.m., a knock came on our front door. Just once. Firm. Not the delivery guy kind of knock. I opened the door and no one was there. But on the doormat was a small white envelope. No name, just our address. Inside was a single photo, printed, not digital. It showed Alora not in a spa robe, not with Bree. She was sitting across from a man at some outdoor cafe. He was laughing, leaning toward her. Her hand was on his. Her wedding ring, my wedding ring, was missing from her finger. I didn't scream, didn't cry. I just stood there holding that photo like it was some kind of riddle. My stomach felt like it was filled with wet cement. And I just placed it on the dining table, right in the center, like it was waiting for her to come home and explain it all away. At 6:17 p.m., the door opened. Sorry I'm late, she said. You would not believe the traffic. Her voice was light, carefree, like she'd been on a day retreat in the clouds. She stepped into the kitchen and set her keys down. And then she saw the photo. She froze. I didn't say a word, not even her name. She looked at it, looked at me, and her lips parted not to speak, but to breathe, like she couldn't remember how. Her eyes widened. Her hand reached for the edge of the counter. And then she dropped. I didn't even move at first. I was too stunned. Then I rushed over, kneeling beside her, calling her name. Her face was pale, like all the blood had vanished from it. Her mascara had smudged slightly, not from tears, but from sheer shock. That's how it began, the unraveling. And I'm terrified to tell you what happened next. I don't know how long I sat on the floor next to her. Time kind of folded in on itself. I remember staring at her chest just to make sure she was still breathing. It rose, then paused, then rose again. Shallow breaths. Her fingers twitched. I whispered her name once, then twice. Alora. Hey, you're okay. You're okay. I don't know if I was saying that to her or to myself. Eventually, her eyes fluttered open. She looked confused, groggy, like she had just woken from a nightmare and was trying to remember if it was real. Then her gaze shifted straight to the table, to the photo. She pushed herself up slowly. I helped her into the kitchen chair, even though part of me didn't want to touch her. I sat across from her. The photo was between us. She didn't ask where it came from. She didn't deny it. What she said instead, I'll never forget. Floyd, I didn't think it would get this far. I blinked. Didn't think what would get this far? She looked at her hands, rubbed her fingers together like she was trying to wipe something off them. Then her voice cracked. It was supposed to be temporary. I didn't even plan it. It just happened. God, I hate that phrase. It just happened. as if affairs are like sudden rainstorms that people accidentally walk into. I asked how long. She didn't answer. I asked again, louder. How long, Alora? Finally, she said, almost 3 months. 3 months. I don't even know what emotion hit me first. Betrayal, rage, numbness. I think it was all of them at once, strangling each other inside my chest. I couldn't speak. My mouth was dry. She kept going. It was only lunches at first. We met at that workshop I told you about in January, the one at the art center. He's a painter. He said I had a sensitive soul. I don't know. I felt seen. That word, seen. As if I'd spent 9 years with her being invisible. As if those nights I held her when her father passed away never happened. As if she was just waiting for someone who painted pictures to validate her existence. She kept talking like she was on some kind of confessional autopilot. He's not married. He's divorced. I didn't think it would matter. You never seemed to care that much, Floyd. About me. About us. I was stunned. I didn't care? I finally choked out. You're the one who stopped talking to me at dinner. You're the one who started sleeping with your phone under your pillow. You're the one who smiled less and less every day. And I still tried to believe we were just going through a phase. She looked away. I think she wanted me to scream. I think she expected it, but I didn't, because that's not me. I don't explode. I just shrink. I collapse inward, like a house with termites in the beams. I asked one more question. Did you sleep with him? There was silence. That's all the answer I needed. The worst part is, I didn't even storm out. I just sat there. The man she betrayed was sitting 2 feet away from her, and all I could do was feel small, like I wasn't even the main character in my own life anymore. She reached across the table. Floyd, I didn't mean to hurt you. I pulled my hand back. I stood up. She flinched. Then I quietly said, I need some air. And I walked out. Not in rage, not in dignity. I just walked out because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I wandered for over an hour, past the church we never went to, past the diner where we used to sit on Sunday mornings with shared headphones and bottomless coffee. The world looked the same, but I was unraveling. When I came back, the house wasn't empty, but something was very, very wrong. When I stepped back into the house, it felt colder, like someone had opened all the windows and let something invisible in. Alora was no longer in the kitchen. The lights were off, but I could hear the low buzz of the fridge and the occasional ticking of the living room clock, which suddenly seemed deafening. For a moment I thought she'd left, that maybe she'd packed a bag and taken off to be with him. I can't say whether that idea scared me or gave me a small ounce of relief. I stepped further inside, calling out her name once. No answer. Then I saw it. Not her, but something else. On the coffee table in our living room sat a second white envelope, just like the one that had been left at the door earlier. This one had my name on it. Not Floyd, not Babe, not even Honey, like she used to call me when she needed a favor. It said, to my husband, in handwriting that wasn't hers. I stood frozen, just staring at it for what felt like minutes. My heart started thudding again, that same deep thud that had kicked in the moment I saw the first photo. I reached for it with fingers that didn't feel like mine. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the paper. Inside wasn't another photo. It was a letter typed, and it wasn't from her. Dear Floyd, you don't know me, but I know you. I've seen you a few times from a distance. I've heard your voice through the walls. I've even sat in your living room. I've shared coffee from your mugs. You might say I've been living in your blind spot. You deserve to know the truth. She told me she'd end things, that it was just a distraction, a phase. But I knew better. The thing is, I fell for her the same way you probably once did. Maybe harder, maybe deeper. I guess that's what makes me the idiot here. She's not who you think she is. Ask her about the art retreat last month. It wasn't just a weekend thing, and it wasn't with Bree. She told me you were cold, that you buried yourself in work and routine, that you made her feel like a roommate. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But she told me enough lies to fill a gallery. I'm done being the secret. I'm done being the excuse. You can have her back if you still want her. Sincerely, dear. Now I had a name. felt disgusting to know it, as if just having it inside my head made me part of their story. As if somehow I'd been cast in a play I didn't audition for, and everyone else had already memorized their lines. I sank down onto the couch, the letter on my lap, the house too quiet, the air too still. Alora finally came downstairs. She had changed. She wasn't in her spa clothes anymore. She was barefoot in an old hoodie of mine, no makeup. Her eyes were red. I could tell she had been crying. "I knew you'd see it," she said softly. I didn't reply. She sat down on the edge of the chair across from me and pulled her knees up like a child bracing for a storm. "He did it, didn't he? He gave you the letter." I still didn't speak. She looked down at the floor and whispered, "I didn't want it to end like this." And all I could think was, "So you planned for it to end some other way?" Because it sure didn't feel like she planned anything, except for me not to find out. She kept talking. "The wasn't supposed to. He wasn't supposed to do that. He said he wouldn't. I told him I needed more time." More time? Like this was some kind of project she was managing. Like I was the outdated version, and she was just waiting on a system upgrade. "What else have you lied about?" I asked. My voice sounded quieter than I expected. She looked up at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her expression that resembled shame, or maybe regret, but it was too late. "Do you want the whole list?" she asked. I nodded, and she took a deep breath. But before she could start, the doorbell rang again. And this time, I knew whatever was waiting on the other side of that door wasn't just another letter. It was something worse. I sat there frozen for a few seconds after the doorbell echoed through the house, the letter still crumpled in my fist. Alora went rigid in her chair, like a child caught sneaking out after curfew. She didn't move. Neither did I. It rang again, one long, impatient buzz that made the hair on my arms stand up. Slowly, I got up. My legs felt like they were made of lead. Every instinct in my body screamed at me not to open that door, but my hand was already reaching for the knob. When I swung it open, the man standing there wasn't what I expected. I don't know what I thought the would look like. Some romanticized, tortured artist, maybe. Instead, he was just plain. Late 30s, maybe 40. Average height, scruffy beard, jeans, and a worn denim jacket. He looked normal. That almost made it worse. He didn't smile, didn't introduce himself, didn't even look at me at first. He looked past me into the house at Alora. She didn't come closer. She just stayed perched on the arm of the couch, arms wrapped tightly around her knees, staring back at him like he was a ghost. Finally, there spoke. His voice was low, almost too calm. "I told you it would come to this," he said. I didn't know whether he was talking to me or to her. Maybe both of us. "What do you want?" I asked. My voice cracked halfway through, and I hated myself for it. I sounded so small, so defeated. He shrugged. "Nothing. Not anymore. I just wanted you to know the truth." "Congratulations," I said bitterly. "Mission accomplished." He hesitated, shifting on his feet. Then, almost gently, he said, "She made promises to both of us, Floyd. You're not the only one who got hurt." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. He lingered another moment, his hands twitching like he wanted to reach out to her. To me, I don't know. Then he turned and walked back down the steps into the growing dusk without another word. No drama, no shouting, just silence. I closed the door softly. The click sounded final, somehow. When I turned back to Alora, she looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Not glamorous, not radiant, just a woman who had built her life on a pile of lies and was now sinking into them. She wiped her face roughly with the sleeve of my hoodie. "I guess you hate me now." I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. I didn't have hatred in me. I didn't even have anger left. Just a hollow, aching sadness that felt like it was rooted into my ribs. Instead of answering, I walked past her into the kitchen. I needed to move, to do something. My hands shook as I opened drawers. Searching for what? I wasn't sure. Maybe a sense of control. Maybe a weapon against the overwhelming sense that my whole life had collapsed without even a proper explosion to mark the moment. I found a pad of paper and a pen, sat down at the dining table, and without really thinking, I started to write. Not a letter, not a goodbye. A list. A list of everything she had said in the last few months that now felt like a lie. A list of all the nights she came home late with spa bags and "I'm exhausted" excuses. A list of the vacations she canceled because of budget concerns. A list of how many times I told myself I was lucky just to have someone, even if they seemed to be slipping further away from me every day. When I finished, the page was nearly full, and I hadn't even gotten to the half of it. Alora came to stand behind me. I could hear her breathing, short and shallow. "What are you doing?" she asked in a whisper. I set the pen down carefully. I straightened the list, folded it once, then again, and I said, without looking at her, "I'm trying to understand what's real." There was a long silence. Then she spoke so quietly, I almost didn't catch it. Nothing was real, and somehow that hurt more than anything else. I pushed back from the table and walked upstairs. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream into a pillow. I just lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, waiting for a feeling, any feeling, to finally break through. I didn't know it yet, but the next morning would bring another revelation. Something even worse than the affair. Something that would make me question if I ever really knew Alora at all. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, eyes open, counting the cracks in the ceiling paint like they were tally marks for every bad decision I'd made over the last 9 years. Every so often, I'd hear Alora move around downstairs. The creak of a floorboard, the soft click of a cabinet door. She wasn't packing. She wasn't crying. She was just existing like a ghost trapped in a house that no longer belonged to her. Around 5 a.m., when the faintest gray light started seeping in through the blinds, I finally sat up. My head was pounding. My mouth tasted like rust. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I needed to move, to do something, anything other than sit in that heavy silence. I wandered back downstairs. She wasn't there. Just the empty living room, the folded letter still sitting on the coffee table like a rotting centerpiece. I rubbed my face with both hands and headed toward the kitchen, intending to make coffee, to start a ritual that might trick me into feeling normal. That's when I saw it. Her purse was open on the counter. Not the usual purse she used every day, but an old one she hadn't carried in months. A blue leather bag I gave her for our 5th anniversary. I don't know why, but something about it seemed off. Maybe it was the way it gaped open like someone had rifled through it and forgotten to close it. Maybe it was just my gut, that quiet little voice that had been whispering for months, "You're missing something." I don't even remember deciding to look. I just did. And tucked in the bottom, underneath an old wallet and a cracked powder compact, was a second phone. Not her regular iPhone. A cheap, no-frills burner phone. The kind people buy when they don't want anyone else to know they're making calls. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might crack my ribs. I picked it up with shaking fingers, my mind already spinning with possibilities I didn't want to face. The screen lit up when I touched it. No passcode. Either she was careless or she never thought I'd find it. The call history was short but devastating. Texts from a number labeled "the." Obviously. Sweet little nothings. Inside jokes I didn't understand. Half-finished plans for secret weekends away. And something else, photos. Not the artsy black and white shots she liked posting on Instagram. No, these were private. Her wearing lingerie I'd never seen before, posing on the same bed I was now too sick to even sit on. Her smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. One video file. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Just seeing the thumbnail, her with messy hair and flushed cheeks, whispering something into the camera with a look I hadn't seen directed at me in almost half a decade, was enough to make me nearly drop the phone. I stumbled back from the counter like I'd been punched. My vision blurred, my knees buckled, and I had to grip the back of a chair to stay upright. I heard her behind me before I saw her. Her bare feet on the tile floor, her soft, guilty breathing. "I was going to get rid of it," she said, voice trembling. "I swear, Floyd. I was just keeping it until I figured out what I wanted." I turned around slowly. "You figured it out," I said. "You just didn't bother to tell me." She stepped forward, hands outstretched like she could smooth this over with a touch, like she could erase the truth clinging to that phone. I didn't know how to leave, she whispered. I shook my head. So you stayed and lied instead. She said nothing because what was there left to say? I dropped the phone onto the counter with a loud clatter and walked past her, brushing her shoulder without meaning to. She flinched like my touch burned. I needed air. I needed to be anywhere but here. So I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. As I pulled it open, I found something waiting on the porch. Another envelope. This one was different. Not white, but black. And my name wasn't written on it. This one said, "To the man who thinks he knows the truth." I stood there, cold morning air rushing over me, the black envelope trembling in my hands, knowing somehow that whatever was inside would shatter what little pieces I still had left. I don't know how long I stood there with that black envelope in my hands. The wind picked up, chilling the sweat already drying on my skin. My mind screamed at me not to open it. Like if I didn't see what was inside, maybe I could stop the freefall my life had become. Maybe I could just pretend everything hadn't already crumbled. But my fingers moved anyway. Slow, mechanical, like it was inevitable. Inside was a stack of photographs. Real ones, printed on glossy paper like some kind of grotesque souvenir set. And they weren't from some public place or restaurant. They were from my own house. My living room, my kitchen, our bedroom. Each photo captured Alora and they're laughing, touching, kissing on my couch, at my dining table, in the bed where, 2 weeks ago, she had curled up next to me, pretending to have a headache. Felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I stumbled back, dropping the photos across the porch. They scattered like dead leaves. I couldn't even bend down to pick them up. I just stared at them, my brain refusing to process what my eyes saw. Behind me, I heard Alora's voice, distant and muffled like I was underwater. "Floyd, please just listen." I turned around slowly. Her face was pale, twisted in horror at the sight of the photos littering the ground. She took a step toward me, but I held up a hand to stop her. She froze. "You brought him here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You brought him into our home." Tears welled up in her eyes. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she started. "You didn't mean for it to happen?" I repeated, laughing without humor. "What? Did you trip and fall onto him? In our bed?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. Maybe she deserved it. Maybe I deserved it more for being so blind. I shook my head, backing away from her, from the house, from everything that was supposed to mean safety and family and love. "You didn't just betray me. You desecrated everything we built. Everything we were supposed to be." Her hands trembled at her sides. Her mouth opened and closed, searching for words that wouldn't come. I bent down stiffly and gathered the photos, stuffing them back into the black envelope without looking at them again. Each one burned my fingers like a brand. Each one was a piece of my life poisoned. When I straightened up, Alora was crying openly. She covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. "I didn't know how to stop," she sobbed. "I didn't know how to come back to you." And that's when it hit me, the most brutal truth of all. She had already left me long before there ever walked through the door. The affair wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the aftermath of a love that had already died. A corpse we had both kept pretending was still breathing because we were too afraid to admit we didn't know how to let go. I stood there, clutching the envelope, and realized there was nothing left worth saving. No speech, no apology, no second chance. Without another word, I turned and walked down the steps, out into the street. The morning sun was breaking over the rooftops, casting everything in a pale, merciless light. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a bag. I didn't even have my wallet. I just knew one thing. I couldn't stay. I walked for hours through streets I barely recognized, past smiling strangers and couples holding hands, past the gas station where we used to buy late-night ice cream, past the park where I once nervously asked her to move in with me. And as I walked, the tears finally came. Hot and bitter, blurring everything until I couldn't tell if the world was falling apart or if it was just me. I ended up at a cheap motel on the edge of town, the kind of place where no one asks questions and the bedspreads have stains you don't want to think about. I paid cash for a room with the little money I had in my pocket and collapsed onto the sagging mattress. I pulled the black envelope out of my jacket. It sat there on the nightstand like a ticking bomb. I couldn't throw it away. I couldn't open it again. It just existed, a silent witness to everything I had lost. I lay there staring at the water-stained ceiling, wondering how it had all gone so wrong without me even noticing. And somewhere, deep inside the hollow shell of myself, a new question started to form. If my whole life had been a lie, then who the hell was I supposed to be now? I stayed in that motel room for 2 days. I barely moved. I didn't eat much. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't call anyone. I just laid there in that sagging bed, feeling the stale air settle into my lungs, letting the weight of everything bury me a little deeper every hour. I couldn't bring myself to open the envelope again. I kept thinking if I left it untouched, maybe all of it would somehow stay contained, like sealing up a virus. It didn't work, of course. On the morning of the 3rd day, I woke up to the shrill buzz of my phone vibrating across the nightstand. My real phone, not the burner one I'd found in Alora's bag. For a second, I thought about ignoring it, pretending I didn't hear it, but my hand moved anyway, almost on instinct. It was a voicemail notification. No missed call, just a new message. Weird. Curious and sick with dread, I played it. At first, I didn't understand what I was hearing. It was muffled, like the phone had been in someone's pocket. But then voices started to cut through, laughing. Her voice, Alora's, and his, theirs. It wasn't recent. I could tell by the way she sounded carefree, flirty, completely unlike the broken woman I'd left behind in our house. In the background, there was music playing, faint but familiar. My playlist. My stupid, romantic playlist I had made for our last anniversary. I realized with a sinking heart that they had been in my house again. And then came the part that made my blood run cold. Thier's voice, low and joking. Does he really still have no clue? Alora's laughter, bright, cruel, unfamiliar. Floyd couldn't find his own shadow if it wasn't taped to his foot. They laughed harder. She kept going. I could dance naked in front of him wearing a sign that says, "I'm cheating on you." And he'd probably just ask if I needed a sweater. I froze. My heart physically hurt. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, like I needed to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. There's chuckle. You think he'll figure it out now? Alora, smirking through her words. Not unless I leave him a trail of breadcrumbs and a neon sign. And then the voicemail cut off. For a long time, I just sat there staring at the wall, the phone limp in my hand. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. It was worse than anger. It was a total hollowing out, an emptiness so complete it felt like I was vanishing from the inside out. They didn't just betray me. They mocked me. They enjoyed it. Every second I had doubted myself, every moment I had blamed myself for her distance, they had been laughing behind my back like I was some kind of pathetic joke. I don't remember throwing the phone across the room. I don't remember standing up or pacing or the guttural sound that clawed its way out of my throat. All I know is that for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something other than sadness. It wasn't the rage you see in movies. It wasn't righteous fury. It was cold, focused, like a switch had finally flipped in my brain. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to beg her to explain herself one more damn time. I was done. I pulled on my jacket, grabbed the black envelope, and walked out of that motel room without a clue where I was going next. But I knew one thing for certain. I was never walking back into that house like a broken man. If I had to confront her again, and I wouldn't go back with a shaking voice and tear-filled eyes. I would go back armed with the truth, with everything she thought I was too stupid, too weak to ever uncover. Because she thought she knew me. She thought I was too soft, too passive to ever fight back. She was wrong. She had no idea who she was about to face. And I was only getting started. The morning air was sharp and cold against my skin as I walked with no real destination. I didn't know what the next few hours would hold. I just knew I couldn't hide anymore. I couldn't stay in that motel forever, trapped under the weight of betrayal like it was my own personal prison cell. I had a choice now. Stay broken or start reclaiming myself, piece by piece. I chose the second option. I made my way back toward the house. Each step felt heavy but necessary. As I walked, the images from the photos flashed in my mind. The voicemail echoed in my ears, but they didn't break me the way I thought they would. They fueled me, not with rage, but with clarity. By the time I reached the house, the sun had risen fully, casting warm, golden light across the front yard. Funny, the same house where my heart had shattered now looked less like a tomb and more like just a building. Wood, stone. Nothing sacred, nothing that could hurt me anymore unless I let it. I pushed the door open. It was unlocked, as if she knew I might come back. Alora was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, still wearing my old hoodie, her hair messy, her face blotchy from crying. She looked up at me like she didn't expect I would ever return. Hope flickered in her eyes. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I walked in calmly. No yelling, no accusations. I placed the black envelope on the table in front of her without a word. She stared at it, then back at me. "Floyd, She began, but I held up a hand. "No more lies," I said gently. "No more excuses." She closed her mouth, biting her trembling lip. I sat across from her, my voice steady, my hands folded neatly in front of me. "You chose this," I said. "You made decision after decision, knowing what it would do to us. To me, you don't get to unmake those choices just because you got caught." Tears spilled down her cheeks, but I didn't move to comfort her. That part of me, the man who would have given anything to soothe her, was gone. "I loved you," I said simply. "I gave you all I had. I believed in us. But loving someone doesn't mean you let them destroy you." She sobbed into her hands, the kind of desperate, ugly sobbing that used to break me down instantly. But today, I stayed rooted in my seat, calm. "I'm not here to fight," I continued. "I'm not here to punish you. I'm here to tell you I'm walking away for good." Her head snapped up, her face contorted in shock. Maybe she thought I would cling to her, beg her to stay, fight for the scraps of what we had left. But there were no scraps anymore, just ashes. "I'll have the papers drawn up by the end of the week," I said. "No arguments, no drama. You can have everything you need. I don't care about the house, or the car, or the stupid coffee table you picked out that I always hated." I stood up slowly. My legs felt strong, firm, like they belonged to a new man. "I just want my freedom," I finished. "And my dignity." She stood too, reaching for me, desperate. "Please, Floyd, we can fix this. We can go to counseling." "No," I said, a soft finality in my voice that even surprised me. "You had your chance. You made your choice." I walked toward the door, pausing only once to look back at her. A woman who once had my entire heart, but now was just a fading chapter of my life. "You'll remember this," I said, "not because of the pain you caused me, but because of the strength you forced me to find." And with that, I stepped outside into the sunlight. I didn't look back. Not once. I drove away from that house, from that life, from the hollow version of myself I had been clinging to for far too long. I got a new place, a small, cozy apartment downtown overlooking the park. I started going back to the gym, picked up my guitar again, reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with while drowning in a marriage that had stopped being a partnership. Weeks passed, then months, and with each sunrise, I found a little more of myself. I didn't need revenge to heal. I didn't need her regret to validate my pain. I just needed to choose myself. 1 year later, sitting in that park, guitar on my knee, warm coffee in hand, I realized something beautiful. Alora's betrayal didn't end me, freed me, and for the first time in a long, long time, I was finally truly happy.